China is apparently a terrible place to live, but nobody seems to have told those from abroad who now call it home, not to mention the millions who are flocking here to experience China for themselves. In this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, celebrating 75 years of the People's Republic, we'll hear the stories of three foreign nationals living in different parts of China. Why did they move here? What have been their experiences, and how have they adapted to the changes of living and working in a place far from their home countries? I'm pleased to be joined from Kaifeng, Central China's Henan province, by Sime Kemeni Darin, a Cameroonian PhD student in martial arts at Henan University; from Xi'an, Northwest China's Shanxi province, by Robin Gilbank, professor at Xijing University; and from Haikou, South China's Hainan province, by Inira Baiburina, Overseas Communication Officer of Hainan International Media Center. The warmest welcome to all of you, and a happy holiday. And I would like to start with Liu Bianjing, or Sime, if I may, first. You come from Cameroon, and you first came to study in China in 2017, if I'm right, and you have stayed ever since. Now you're a big fan of the local opera in Henan province that's known as Yuju. You even performed on TV, and you have won a prize in a competition that's featuring Chinese performers as well. So your studies brought you to China, but what made you stay?
Oh, what made me stay here in China is all about the culture, because the Chinese culture is so wonderful, has really great exploration in terms of life, in terms of life study, and in terms of what we call science and, let's say, knowledge about the personal well-being and ourselves. So when I studied the Chinese culture way back in 2017, one of my teacher told me, if you want to learn more about the Chinese culture, you need to come to China. And when I arrived here, I was so amazed by the beautiful culture, and I started practicing, asking from teachers to teachers how this culture, the whereabout, and why it's so peculiar and so attractive.
You started asking your teacher about
Yeah.
Yuju, or
About the culture in general.
about the
And
culture in
then
general? Okay.
general. And then I started focusing particularly on the first culture that I started learning was the martial art. And then I tried to realize the martial art has to do with like in and out well-being. And then I came about the Henan Opera in 2018, and I said, wow, the singing, the, like say, the play, the characters, they are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was something wonderful to me. I feel like, yeah, I need to learn. I need to go in for something new. And
Okay.
then that's how I started my long journey up to date.
This is amazing because Yuju is so different from your home culture, right? In Cameroon, I guess you have nothing like that.
Yes, in
It's not
Cameroon, we
only
don't have,
Chinese, it's a dialect of
yeah,
Chinese.
the dialect of Chinese. So what is amazing about culture is that in Cameroon, we have what we call dancing, drums, and play. That's the general form of representing culture in Cameroon. But here, what I made here is about dancing, display, this a big story, and it's like a beautiful way of singing. That's all I say now. So wonderful. And I'm also amazed by the people that I met that equally taught me how to sing, how to understand, how to like say have a basic understanding of the opera.
Now you got us all curious. You have to sing a little bit. Can you
I have
showcase
to
a few?
sing a little bit. I'll make it
Yeah.
a short a cappella. I think uh, basically a lot of people know this opera is about Hua Mulan, Mulan. It's Mulan story. So
Yeah.
it sings like this. 刘大哥江河李海篇，谁说女子相情贤？男子打仗到边关，女子纺织 This is just a short acapella of the Mulan opera.
Wow, that's amazing. A warm round of applause. That's amazing. Anyway, for people's understanding, it's about, I think it's one of the first, how should I say, ancient testimony to equality between men and women, right? It's praising the women's role in a battlefield in wartime.
It's a symbol to women independence.
Yeah, well, that's great. From my limited knowledge, you've done a great job. Robin, yeah, Robin, what is your take? How do you like it?
Yes, I couldn't sing as well as that.
But it's really
Don't ask
wonderful.
me to sing a local Shanxi opera because I've tried that before at parties and things, and people say I'm terrible. So I admire Darren for being able to do that.
Thanks,
Yeah, yeah.
Robin.
It's really amazing. But let me come to Robin here, because you also, although you can't really sing, apparently, but you can write and you can translate. I understand. You have been in China for over 15 years, and you've translated a number of works by famous Chinese writers for global readers, including famous writers such as Jia Pinghua and a whole host of others who come from Shanxi. And now you're in Xijin University at the School of Foreign Languages. Tell us a bit more about your story.
Well, I came to China almost by accident. Back in the beginning of this century, 2007, 2008,
Okay.
I was doing my PhD back in the UK, and I got to know some Chinese teachers who were studying for their master's degree in the same department as me, and they said, if you ever need a job, you can always come and work in China for a year or two. And so I graduated with my doctoral degree, and then it was the time of the global financial crisis of 2008. So finding work in the UK or in America was very very difficult. And so one day, one of these friends emailed me and said, do you still want to come and work in China? And I thought, well, what's to stop me? What's the worst thing that could happen? And so I told myself, well, I'll go there for a year or two, and then I'll come home as soon as I get bored or I have nothing to do. And I don't think I ever got bored.
Okay, so one of the things that you do, which prevented you from getting bored, is translation. Apparently, could you just, like what Sime did, could you share with us a quote or two of your translation work, the ones that you like the most?
As is with the topic of the interview, I will read you a little bit from an essay by Jia Pinghua, a piece of his prose about Xi'an. This is some words of his on Xi'an. As new cities in this world increasingly resemble a heap of cement, how can I describe the city of Xi'an? It is well known that Xi'an was capital of 13 historical dynasties, and how the 8 waterways which wove around Chang'an endowed it with an enviable feng shui. As time has gone by, it is true that Xi'an no longer is a political, economic, and cultural center of China. And yet the most sublime thing is that the city still abounds in ancient charm and elegance. Xi'an retains the most rarefied atmosphere of any classical metropolis across the entire world. The city wall is remarkably intact. When one stands alone on the drawbridge above the moat and raises one's head to survey the gate tower, turrets, and crenellations, even the most timid of people cannot help but burst into loud, passionate rhapsodies.
Wow, beautiful,
Wow.
beautiful. And what a change in atmosphere, right? From the singing, from the
Yeah.
the power, the passion in there, and to this very subtle, but again also powerful literary work, of course, with the help of translation by Robin, is very touching. I need a few moments to savor that. I guess our audiences too, but let's keep that in mind. And as we go to our third guest here, who is Inira Byburina. You are originally from Russia, And you've been in China since 2015. You first came here to study, I guess. You are now, I'm told, married to a Chinese man. And you have been given the task of being a cultural ambassador for Hainan province. So before you introduce yourself, let's first take a look at a short video of your work. So, Inira, welcome to The Point. What brought you to Hainan in the first place, and what's been your experience living and starting a family on the island?
Hello, everyone. I think it's very good and great experience. I never have been think I will move to another country for living. But one romantic story happened to me is I meet my husband. So then, when my trip is almost finished, I went back to, and when I back to Russia, he just go to Russia to pick up me and bring me back to this beautiful place, Hainan.
So he chased you back to Russia. He said, "Come with me back to Hainan."
Yes, and I can't say no because Hainan is really great place.
How come you became the cultural ambassador of Hainan? What's the story there, and what are these videos for?
Actually, I never studied to be a host, and I also didn't imagine I can be a host. I'm very thankful to HIMC for this opportunity, and I'm very happy to be a host. Uh, it's just situation, just a simple. I make friend with some of some worker of HMC. So then they told
HMC
me
is the
it's
Hainan Media Center.
International Media Center.
Okay.
Yes, and then I just start to have a trip around this tropical island and make a new friends and learn about culture more deeply.
And now you call it home.
Yes, and now I call it home with a lot of beautiful and great people, which is really like their culture and the things they do. For example, like a Lee brocade, it's very great, unique handcraft of Lee Nation in Hainan.
I see, the ethnic minority Li people, right?
Yes.
I see what you mean. Okay, we will probably go into more details if you want. And I must say, Inira, I watched some of your videos. You're very creative. I don't know who comes up with these ideas. It's very smartly made and very well made as well. So congratulations on that. Let me ask you a common question to all three of you. For the people who are watching us outside of China, what they're reading is obviously very different from what you're living. How do you find the gap between, how big is the gap between the image of China in the mainstream media or in the media in your home country and the real China that you know? What do you try to explain to your friends and family back home what China really is? Shall we start with Sime?
Thanks for the question. What I do on my part is like my family, I try to introduce them to what I'm doing in China and to tell them how beautiful Chinese people are. And then I'll try to advise them to like say, if you have time, you can go and study Chinese and try to understand that way you try to understand what I'm doing and how beautiful the culture is. Sometimes I always equally try with my friends to tell, yeah, Chinese here, but what I heard is different from what you say. But I say, I live in China. I know the realities. I know how it is. What you hear is different from what you see. When you arrive here, that's when you're going to feel different China. Feel it is different from listening. So that's always what I try to advise them to do. If you have time, you can just see what I do or follow me or try to ask more questions directly to people, Chinese people, or try to understand what they are doing or go to a particular, let's say, center where you can have all these answers. That's what I try to tell them. And a lot of people have come back to me and say, yeah, what you say is true. What you say is right. It's when you feel it, that's where you feel the difference. So and that's always how I try to do to fill the gap about this question.
Would you give an example, one biggest example that that people fail to
One
understand?
biggest example is about, let's say, one of my friends called me and say, yeah, how do you think, I've seen a video that living in China is very difficult. Foreigners don't have opportunity to do a lot of things. I just told him that I'm in the cultural aspect. So I told him that when you're interested in culture in China, a lot of Chinese people will be interested in you. No matter what you are doing, you will feel like more opportunities compared to others. So I try to make them understand you need to be interested in something in China. If you just come for, like, say, to business or do something else, that's different. That's interest, particularly in business. But you come for studying, you need to have something more that you need to give to your studies, or to be interested in something in particular in the Chinese aspect. That's what I tell them to do. And then one of my friends listened to what I say, and he told me, yes, there's a big difference between communication in Chinese and his communication. Try to understand, like, the barrier has come more close. So that's always what I try to do each time if I have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. Robin, what has been your story? The British media, they're very, very, how should I say, sophisticated when it comes to reporting on China. How big is the struggle you have to overcome, let's say, reconciling what you hear back home and what you live here?
Um, I think what I would point to is that in the years I've been in China, there's been quite a sort of sea change in the media. The BBC and other, and the newspapers and the major news agencies in the UK haven't changed a great deal, and there has been a good deal of controversy and criticism about their reporting of China, especially with regards to the pandemic and so on. However, the interesting thing has been a kind of grassroots explosion. If you look at what people are doing now, especially vloggers and ordinary visitors to China, they may not know very much about the country when they first come or when they visit, but China gets under their skin. It really has an impact on them, often an immediate impact, and they cannot help but tell their stories to the world. This is very interesting. So there's a great deal of information out there on the internet and elsewhere, which often it counterposes or even opposes the dominant media narratives that you get through the established channels. So at first, when there was a lot of these vloggers and so on rising in popularity, I tended to have quite a snobbish attitude towards that, I must confess. I tended to think that, working in the arts and cultural section in education, that these people are not very well informed. However, sometimes the accuracy of what they are saying, sometimes what they see with their own eyes is actually more truthful than the so-called reliable sources that are, that shoulder the responsibility for telling the news to the world. So it's really quite fascinating.
Yeah. What do you try to make an impact on, knowing the kind of gap, knowing the kind of sea change in the main conventional media, but also knowing the kind of changes that are happening on the grassroots on social media? Is there anything that you think can be done, or you are contributing to it as a translator? For instance, you're trying to bring some of what China really is to as wide an audience outside of China as possible.
Well, I suppose these are all part of the discourse, aren't they? If you buy a book or buy an ebook, that's an investment. It's an investment of your time and your effort. It's not just the same as clicking on a video for 5 minutes. It takes a bit more commitment to get into that. So that's one form of expression, and it's also an important form of expression, and it hasn't yet been superseded or become extinct. I think the important thing to stress is such as the breadth and the depth of China and the resilience of China that the country is able to take all of these things they can confront things whether they are truthful or untruthful, or whether they have a grain of truth or little value at all. But there's such a broad field, and all of these things can coexist. And I think we don't always give people credit overseas. Just because you haven't been to China yourself, it doesn't mean to say that you don't think carefully about what you consume. I think, especially in Britain, we have kind of quite a skeptical public. You know, we're used to politicians, we're used to people not telling us the truth, or we're used to a lot of spin. But I think people are able to filter that, and I think often they're able to see through that. They're able to identify truth tellers for themselves. I think we should give them credit for that.
Great. Inira, what keeps you motivated, and where do you get your, for instance, where do you get your creativity from? I see you being very passionate, very creative, and great ideas. I see very professional production. Where do you draw your inspiration from?
First, I'm not working alone. We have a team. It's really great people, which is always helping me. Because as I tell, I never studied to be a host, so they always helps me about this and tell me how to act. And I can ensure you, all videos is not fake acting, it's my real emotion, because I'm really surprised and interesting about different traditions and culture of Hainan.
Yeah, I understand. I see you're wearing a Chinese costume. What's the lower part? Show us the skirt, if you can.
Okay, actually it's Ma Mian Qun, very beautiful Chinese
Ma Mian Qun,
yes.
Oh, wow, it's beautiful. It's a pity you are sitting in front of the camera. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. Are there any difficulties? I mean, to live in Hainan, the language barrier, maybe the cultural shocks, I don't know. Has there been anything where you say, oh, this is hard, I miss my home or something like that?
Yes, of course, because first of all, I come to here because of my husband. I fall in love with the person, and then I fall in love with the location where he brings me back. Of course, I had cultural shock and language barriers. I couldn't understand. I was very interesting, for example, about food. Why Chinese people separate food to cold and hot, not by temperature. They just by category. Yes. And for example, why they walk backwards and clap hands in the park. I want to know, but I cannot just go and ask them, because when I just come and couldn't speak Chinese, Hainan, not a lot of Hainan people, they can speak English. Just now, more and more young people, they start to understand and know English.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can imagine. Yeah. I myself also lived in a foreign country for a couple of years. I can totally relate to how you're feeling. For those who may be interested in visiting China, coming to visit first and maybe even staying, what would be the number one advice you would share, being someone who has done it? Sime first, maybe, again?
The number one advice that I can share is, one, you need to know where you're going to in China and the place that you want to visit. What is attracting you there? When you arrive to that place, you feel something more like different. You feel like coming back the second time. Discover more about other places. And that's the best thing. That's the first thing. Everyone coming to China needs to have an idea why I'm going to China. And then when you have that question, you find like, why should I stay in China? And then you feel like, I want to learn more. I want to go and discover more The diverse culture in China is so broad, and there are so many beautiful places. The second advice is that have a little knowledge of the language
Okay.
to avoid language barrier. To
All right.
learn more, to like get in touch with the real China. The
Okay.
language is very important. The
Yeah.
last thing, make a lot of friends.
Okay. Um, Robin?
I'd say two things. Building upon the last point that Sime mentioned, I think be open-minded, be open to new things, and don't look at things with blinkered eyes. You know, be prepared to take things in and to appreciate things that you find around you. The second point I would point out is technology. You have to be prepared for the fact that even if you're in a sort of second tier city in China, the technology there is likely to be more advanced than in your home country. Last month I was in London, and if you compare the Xi'an metro and the London Underground, you can tell that there's more than 100 years difference in age. You
Wow.
know, the Xi'an metro is like entering a hotel. You know, it's wonderful. However, you know, you need to gain a knowledge of apps and, you know, online payment using, you know, Alipay
Right.
or WeChat Pay. Those things now are really essential. That China is a lot more advanced than you may think or anticipate.
And China has been making it more and more, convenient for foreign visitors. For instance, the latest is you can use international credit cards to enter subways in Beijing. You know, you don't need to buy a card. This is just a few weeks new. Anyway, I think things will get better and better. Finally, Inira, what would be your tip for someone who wants to follow your footsteps?
I want to say China is different. It's very, very different. So the first of all, you should know why you go there. For example, if I will recommend Hainan, Hainan is for climbing mountains or staying on the beach, trying different food. If you coming to make a business, you should to know about which city you are going for to get more information. And it's a really very hard to say complex things. But my tips is like just be positive, and even you don't have any language knowledge like a Chinese, don't be scared to ask. Doesn't matter by English or maybe ask me Russian. Chinese people, they are open. They always can help you. They
All
will
right.
use any way, yes, to help you to answer your question or anyway.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm very happy that you find it very helpful when you are new to this place. We have to leave it there. I have been talking to Sime Kemeri Darin, a Cameroonian student in Henan province, Robin Gilbank, a professor in Shanxi province, and Inira Baiburina, a overseas communications officer of Hainan International Media Center. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you on the show. Yeah,
Thank you too.
thank you. And with that, we come to this special edition celebrating 75 years of the People's Republic of China. As usual, you can follow me on Facebook and X using the handle Lu Xin in Beijing. On behalf of the whole team, thank you for watching. You've got the point.